Yeah, it was good.
Every once in a while, it's a surprises. So, if at any point you see somebody start saying, "I can't hear you," whatever it is, you just let me know, and I can always
Sounds good.
if I hear it's like a view.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
Raj, you gonna do great.
Yes, I will.
So I was gonna say,
All right. Yeah. Good. Good. I think it's good. Good. Got that?
and we're on here. And
Perfect.
the only thing basically to do, if you ever want to, is you can adjust that.
I think we're good. Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roger Matloff. I'm a trustee of Temple Adas Israel. And today I have the privilege of being the masters of ceremony for this most joyous event. We Jews are known as people of the book. What I find ironic is the first thing that many readers glance at when they get a new book is a section on acknowledgments. But the acknowledgments are usually written last. After the author has completed his manuscript, he has a full appreciation of all the work he has put in, and in turn, for all the people who have really contributed in some way. Today, we turn the page and start a new chapter for Temple Adas Israel. But first, some acknowledgments. There are very few visionaries in this world. Dreamers, there are plenty. But Ambassador Ronald S. Lauder is a true visionary. Today we celebrate not only the rededication of Temple Adas Israel, but also the inauguration of the Ronald S. Lauder Center for Jewish Learning, a vision in the works for many years. I, along with the entire Board of Trustees, as well as the entire congregation, would like to thank Ronald S. Lauder and his wife, Jo Carroll, for their generous contribution to make this vision a reality. Before we begin our program, I think some words of Torah are in order. I would like our spiritual leader, Rabbi Geffen, to share some thoughts and wisdom. Rabbi?
Well, I can guarantee you some thoughts. About wisdom, you'll have to tell me afterwards whether I achieved that lofty goal. So, first of all, while most of the specific thank yous are given to others to say today, I do want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who are here with us right now. I want to thank those that may be watching us from afar. And I very much want to thank those who came before us, who are not with us in this room, but who undoubtedly built this place. For me, it's a question, a big question. What does one do when being part of a moment in history? And to me, one of the prerequisites for being in a moment of history is to celebrate history, to understand it, and to truly embody its greatest wisdoms, its greatest teachings. So for us, we need to first understand the sacred place that we are in, to understand where it is that we ultimately come. That's my son, by the way, so don't worry. That's how I usually know if I'm working well or not. I am it. It's mostly he wants to be up here. He wants to be the rabbi. So, as I was saying, to realize that we are in a sacred space, but to understand that sacred space is to understand its history as well. And this history of this area goes back beyond any of us, beyond this temple, beyond our people. We give gratitude really for the first people who lived in this space, the Native American tribes, the Shinnecock, the Nantucket, others who made this space their sacred home first. And then to our founding members who came here over 120-something years ago, who had almost nothing with them but a vision, a dream, but a dream that couldn't possibly have imagined what we sit in today. I think of the generations also of members and leaders of this temple who carried us through the good times and the bad, and there were bad times, really challenging times. And many of those people who are not with us anymore were only here because of them. And I'm also very conscious as I stand here, a part of history, to be grateful for the people who stood in my place before me, especially our beloved Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Leon Morris. Because without Rabbi Morris, for certain, we would not be in this space having this conversation today. To reach this moment of really rededication, of Chanukhat HaBayit, of establishing again for ourselves our home, we have to take a moment to truly realize and appreciate and offer our gratitude to God for reaching this moment, reaching this space. Thankfully, in our tradition, we have a bracha, we have a blessing that is designed exactly for this moment. So I want to invite up Cantor Kevin, who is perfectly situated exactly as he is, because we know he's definitely got the better voice than I do, to help lead us all in the Shechianu prayer. And I want you all to join with us. If you don't know the melody, you can also do something important. In your heart, to think about what it means to reach a special moment like this, what that means for you. And as we sing this, I want to just ask one last thing of you, which is I want you to look around as we sing. You may recognize a lot of these faces. You may recognize very few. But every one of them in their way is a part of the tapestry of this beautiful place that we call home. So when we say this prayer, we say it also together as a community. So Cantor, how about you come on over? Let's sing it together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sheheyanu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Sheheyanu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Amen.
Thanks, buddy. Of course. So I didn't just bring him up to sing. Kind of had a feeling I wasn't going to get through it. So thank you for pulling me through. So we said the bracha, and I only have a little bit of time with you, but I do want to teach something today. So the blessing that we just said, Shechianu, is indeed a prayer that is said in exactly the moment we just experienced, right? A moment of joy, a moment of celebration, but it's actually a very complex prayer. Its original concept is that you're supposed to say it when you do or experience something that occurs infrequently from which one derives pleasure or benefit. So a lot of times we assume it's only said at a moment that will never happen again. It's not true. We say the Shechianu actually every time that we get to our Yom Tovs, to our holidays. We say it the first time that we are taking, a sip of Yom Tov wine. But you're also supposed to say it when you have the first fruit in its season. So if, for example, any of you get to eat, something of our local produce, you eat a strawberry for the first time in its season, you are meant to say this bracha in that moment. But its original idea, one of the first places that it's applied in the Mishnah, is when you purchase a new home. So I wouldn't quite call this purchasing a new home, but certainly you can see how the mind goes immediately to that moment. But this is where it gets really interesting. In that circumstance, if you, for example, you buy a new suit, thank you, Lou, by the way, for getting me this new suit, which I think looks pretty good. Right? Technically, you're supposed to say Shechianu for getting a new suit. But if you're the only beneficiary, that's appropriate. If, however, you were to buy, for example, a car, something that you share with your family, you can't say the Shechianu for that because you're not the only one benefiting from it. So there is actually another bracha, one that is not known by many and not used often, but it is very appropriate for this moment. The bracha is this: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hatov v'hametiv. We bless you, God, sovereign of the universe, who is both good and does good. And why this? The implication is that with Shechianu is a good that we really, again, experience for ourselves. But it's not enough. When we do something with others, when there's more than one of us, we say Hatov v'hametiv because it is not enough to be good just for ourselves. It is also about being good for others, sharing that goodness with others. So this bracha, in many ways, is actually a more appropriate blessing for this moment, more than the Shechianu. Hatov v'hametiv, how good it is to be in this space, to be in our home, to be in this place again. But how much more important it is to do good, to make this a center of goodness, not just in Sag Harbor, not just in New York, not just in the United States, but in the world. Each and every one of you is a part of that story. Each and every one of you is a part of that blessing. It is good to be here, but now we have work to do. Now we have goodness to bring into the world, and we're going to do it together. And it begins exactly in this moment. So I want to ask you all to repeat after me this blessing, which maybe you are saying for the first time in your life. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hatov v'hametiv. And I will say back to you, amen, amen ve'amen, nothing but goodness, nothing but blessing from this moment forward. It's now my privilege to invite up two dear friends who are really more like family, to the co-chairs or the chair of our building committee, Richard Hemley, and to the chair of our capital campaign committee, Neil Fagan, if they would please join us on the bima right now.
With a key in their pocket. Do I need to repeat it?
Yes.
There's a black Porsche outside. That's yours.
Got it. All right. We don't. That, problem solved. Okay. Very good. Okay. There you go.
So Richard's going to go first.
Then we got to angle up.
I want to thank everybody for showing up. We're almost finished. The job is not 100% finished. We have small things to do. The railings aren't up outside. The staircase in the front isn't finished. But the majority is finished. And we want to thank everyone here for all of their help. We appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm not quite as tall as Richard. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce our hero, Rabbi Ambassador Ronald Lauder. He was almost a rabbi. In fact, it is the first time Temple Adas Israel will give this prodigious reward to anyone. I couldn't find a hero's award, so I have this sheriff's fortune. and you'll wear it with honor. Seriously, the Lauders have been part of our temple for years. I first met Joe Carroll and Ronald at our 100th celebration party. We remain temple friends since then. About 15 years ago, I was standing outside as an usher, and Ronald and Joe Carroll came up to me and said, we have to do something about this temple. We have to make it outstanding. And here we are tonight. It's now outstanding. Ronald has as a requirement that the kids be educated in a bright and cheerful spot. We will be going downstairs later to this bright and cheerful spot, not for education, but for some hors d'oeuvres and drinks. Ronald has made so many suggestions to improve this temple. He's just not, he just doesn't stand by and let something go by that's not perfect. When Rabbi Morris made Aliyah, Ronald joined our search committee. He never missed a meeting. He could be flying around the world to very important meetings, but he was always part of our search committee. And Dan could attest to this. And Dan is here tonight because of Ronald's efforts. Not so incidentally, we are a year-round congregation because of the Lord's efforts and financial help. Ronald has done so much for the Jewish people worldwide. Due to his influence, at least in the numbers right, of more than 40,000 kids have been educated. Jewish kids have been educated, mostly in Europe. I could stand up here for hours saying all the good deeds that the Lords have done, but I have to mention the presidency of the World Jewish Congress. Through this organization, Ronald has mounted a campaign to help fight anti-Semitism. So much more, but let's hear it for this truly amazing man who will cut the ribbon for our rededication of Temple Adas, Israel. Ronald.
No prayer, I say, right?
No prayer. We can make one up.
I'm sure you can.
I'm sure we can.
Ready? I've received many gifts in my life. Never a sheriff's badge. I cannot see the reaction when I show up at a World Jewish Congress meeting with a sheriff's badge. Before I start, there are two people who are not here and meant a lot to me when I came almost 40 years ago. It was Donald Katz, whose daughter is here, and son-in-law, and another daughter in the back somewhere. And David Lee, I don't know who's, but he was very special to me, and I thank him. I also thank Neil Fagan. I have taken his name off my list of people I want to listen to. But I am considering him for the fundraiser for the World Jewish Congress. Richard Hemley, Richard there is, well, I got very nervous a couple of days ago when you won well. My next house I build will not be built by him. He's too particular. And Tom Atkinson, I don't know if he's here. Is Tom here? Way in the back. Tom is a general contractor, and I make him an honorary Jew because he did it with so much soul and so much love. We can't thank him enough. What you're looking at here is something so well done, I cannot believe it. And Marilyn Zaretsky, where are you, Marilyn? Okay, where are you, Marilyn? Okay, Marilyn deserves the thing, no prisoners, because she was always making sure that everything was done right and all the pieces together. I'd like to take this opportunity to share some thoughts about Adas Israel and the inauguration and where I am and what's happening in the World Jewish Congress. I believe very, very much that this synagogue is a metaphor for Jewish life today. I first came here, Joe Carroll reminded me, my wife Joe Carroll in the front row, well, the first time I heard her sing in synagogue. I didn't know you knew those words. By the way, before we got married, she was more Jewish than I was. Anybody was. We came here 40 years ago. We came here with my mother, and she said something that says very much. She said, this synagogue feels like home. And it was. And we never come here without thinking of her and what she meant to us. Now, if someone had said to me that I'd be president of the World Jewish Congress and spending the rest of my life dedicated to Judaism, I would have told them to take 2 aspirins, lie down until the thought leaves them. I'd like to tell you, I grew up as the most assimilated Jew in New York City, and that's a big statement. About 6 months before my bar mitzvah, my mother decided it's time for me to learn some Hebrew. And I can't have a bar mitzvah without learning something. So she got some Orthodox rabbi to come and see me Sunday morning. And he says to me, look, let's start off in the beginning. God created the earth in 6 days, and the 7th day was Sunday. He closed his book and said, you're hopeless. He says, but is there anything I can do for you? So I said, look, I don't have time to study it. Obviously, I don't know it. Could you make me a record of what I have to say and divide it in parts so that I know which comes first? He looked at me and said, that's about 40 minutes. I said, I'll memorize it. I said, okay. Now, for me to memorize is like memorizing Chinese, but the fact is that I did memorize it. And then comes the question, where do I go to get bar mitzvah? It turned out that, like today, you have to be part of the school in the synagogue to be bar mitzvah there. So we had a problem. And finally, my mother said, you know, my parents up in Port Washington, and there's a Hungarian synagogue there that's Orthodox. I said, and let me see if they'll take you. So she calls up, speaks a little bit of Hungarian, but speaks and tells them. And they were saying, we're not sure. And she says, well, this is Estee Lauder. So yes, we'd like to have him. So there I was, brought into a synagogue that the men were downstairs, the women were upstairs. So I said, where's the women? They're upstairs. Anyway, they point to the first thing I had is thing. They point to something, and I started saying it. I sang it. They looked at me and said, we've never seen someone read Hebrew so quickly. And there I went through all the different things. The last thing, before we were finished, they said something to me. I said, I don't know. He says, let's all join the bar mitzvah boy in singing whatever it was. And I mouthed the words. That's my last thing but Judaism. And I stopped everything. I became a normal New York Jew, which means totally assimilated again. And it wasn't until I was named ambassador to Austria. Is this still on? But you can all hear me. That's my name. Okay, I'll speak louder. Is that okay? Okay back there? Okay. The man with the black hat gave me the up sign, right? Yeah. Anyway, after spending 3.5 years in the Pentagon, President Reagan said, would you like to become ambassador to Austria? I said, great, I'd love to become ambassador to Austria because I spoke German and I love Vienna. And Joe Carroll and I would have a wonderful time in Vienna. Just before we left, there was an article in the New York Times that Kurt Waldheim, who was running for president of Austria, Turned out he was not a law student in Vienna. He was, in fact, a Nazi. And he was running for office. Doesn't sound like the perfect place for me to go, but I'll go. And I listened to him make one speech. He made a speech and says, I'm not guilty because I did nothing different than your fathers or brothers or uncles or sons did. Okay. Anyway, he won. And Joe Carroll and I decided to take our 2 children and leave Austria for the inauguration. Never done in the history. And I used to be the American ambassador. I came back as a Jewish American ambassador. This was my first beginning to see what anti-Semitism was about. What happened after that is by chance I met Rabbi Jacob Biederman, who had a kindergarten. You still hear me back there? Okay. And at this kindergarten, these were mainly almost all Russian Jewish kids who came out of Russia, and Russia opened up their doors thanks to what we did in America. And they had a choice. They can go to Israel, America, or staying in Austria. For reasons unbeknownst to me, a lot of them decided they didn't want to go to Israel after coming out of central Russia. And they couldn't get into America, so they decided to stay in Israel. I decided to stay in Vienna. And Rabbi Biederman opened the school. There were 40 or 50 or 60 kids, I don't remember the exact number, in a small apartment. And I come in and I look at these kids and I say, there by the grace of God go I. So Joe Carroll and I decided to make this school a real school. So we got some more space, we started to build the thing up, and all of a sudden we had a real school before I left. And just around that time, the word got out, there's a Jewish ambassador who likes to build schools. So the Jewish communities of Eastern Europe, being very, very shy people, invited me to go first to Hungary, then to Poland, which was no easy thing. And over the next 10 to 15 years, we opened up 35 kindergarten schools, high schools, even a university. And that's the 40,000 people, 40,000 Jewish kids that graduated. Then I learned a secret. The secret to the future of Judaism is not the people sitting in this room, but it's their children. All of us know what happened. The children don't know. They're the 4th generation. The most important part of this synagogue is not here. It's downstairs where you have the school. And we decided a few weeks ago that what we see in schools, universities, all over the place, the anti-Semitism is terrible. The World Jewish Congress is going to take all our resources and put it into Jewish education in the United States. We are also going to the UJA and said, look, instead of giving money to hospitals, I'll give you an example. One of the things, I one time went to a hospital in the Bronx, a Jewish hospital. So I walk in, there's no Jews there. And I said to the person, this is a Jewish hospital. He said, we haven't seen Jews here in 30 years, but for the last 30 years, thanks to UJA, we get $250,000 a year. So I went to the UJA and started speaking to them and said, I want a certain percentage to come to schools. It's the most important thing you can do. we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be something that we are going to do something. Also, we have an organization called Lawfare, which is some of the brightest lawyers in the United States, and we are going to bring suit against any school that has anti-Semitism. There is a thing called Title VI, which says any school that has anti-Semitism cannot receive federal funds. We will also let people know that this school is having anti-Semitism. Particularly, most schools are helped very, very much by Jewish people. And I'm saying to them, look at your schools. You have tell them that you won't give until they stop anti-Semitism. It's going to be a major thing. Joe Carroll and I are moving to somewhere hiding for a period of time. No, but frankly, it is something that I believe very strongly. And let me tell you, this school downstairs will be a champion of what we're doing because we're doing it all over. I'd like to jump for a second. I also was involved in another synagogue in Berlin, Beth Zion. And on November 9th, 1938, it was burned. That's Kristallnacht. I presume many of you know what Kristallnacht was about. But what we saw is we had just the outside, a frame, and we had one black and white photograph of the inside of the synagogue. So I took it and raised the money. We raised the money. Okay. And what happened is a few weeks ago, it reopened exactly the way it looked. And right now, right in the center of Berlin, right in the center of probably the most anti-Semitic, Nazi-infested place in Berlin, I loved it. The fact is that we have now 2 morning services because all the young people who are Jewish and never wanted to come there, we have evening services and it is full. It only fits it's the same size as this, as a matter of fact. And on November 9th of this year, the president of Germany is coming there to rededicate it. Okay. Now, what does Beth Zion and Adas Israel have in common? They are both center of Jewish life. And I ask everybody here, whatever you can, any of your friends, neighbors who are Jewish, please ask them to come. Andy, I'm glad you're here. Thank you. He did a good job. Frankly, a synagogue is a central part of Jewish life, and education is a critical thing. My message to all of you, this is not only one ceremony, this is the beginning of a new life for the synagogue. And I must tell you, you have a fabulous rabbi here, ask him. And you have an excellent cantor, and I must tell you, he's really good. And you have a great congregation, great people in charge, and let's work together to make this synagogue a center of Jewish life here in Sag Harbor. Not just a synagogue, but what it stands for. And what we have here is we are trying to do what our parents and grandparents stood for. This is not just us, it's for them. And it's for the children downstairs who want to feel proud of being Jewish. And even if you have no children downstairs, what you're doing is for other people's children. and anyone you can find, do it. Anyway, thank you all. God bless you. God bless our synagogue. And may God continue to bless the Jewish people. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay. It's all yours. I would have done better with a microphone.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Lauder, for those inspiring and thought-provoking words. You know, the most recent Pew study showed about a quarter of American Jews do not identify with the religion of Judaism, even though they consider themselves ethnically Jewish. The reason is lack of education. You know, the protecting walls of Jewish nostalgia and generational loyalty will collapse under the mounting pressure of Jewish illiteracy and disinterest. Your generosity and the establishment of the Ronald S. Lauder Center for Jewish Learning will make a tremendous impact, not only for our community, but for future generations. You know, learning is one of our forms of spiritual practice. You know, the Hebrew word for leadership is managog. It derived from the root found in the word behavior. For Judaism, effective leadership is not about position, it's about behavior and action. Temple Adass Israel is fortunate to have a very strong leadership team. I would now like our co-presidents, Alan Levitt and Ron Klausner, to share some thoughts.
I'd like to recall the formation of the synagogue and the principles that it has guided it for the last 125 years. 130 years ago, a dozen or so Jewish immigrants left the Lower East Side and came to Sag Harbor. They did have jobs, but they knew three things. Three things were certain to them. They weren't going back to Poland. They needed a place to pray, and they needed a place to go where they died. So they built the synagogue to pray in the cemetery on 114. And when they opened the synagogue, they had some fundamental beliefs that we've stood by today. No one has ever been denied the right to pray here because of the inability to pay. Inability to buy a membership, inability to pay dues. It has never happened. It never will happen. The Hebrew school has become the focal point here, and the same policy stands. Nobody gets denied going to Hebrew school because they can't pay. The cemetery was a Heber society was formed. A Heber is a little society. The Jewish community came here and they supported each other. If somebody was sick, people cooked meals for them. If somebody was in financial need, people helped them out. We've continued to do that today, and we need to do more of that. We're also part of a much greater society and have responsibilities to Sag Harbor and the neighboring towns in general. We participate in the food pantry, fighting homelessness, fighting domestic abuse, and this is what we stand for and should be always what we stand for. When we walk into this building, we walk in with leaving our politics at the door and our prejudices at the door and just enter with an open heart. There's so much we can do, but it starts with the children. We have to fill the building with education and then go to adult education and learning. We have great leadership in Dan. We have great supporters in Ambassador Lauder. The future is ours. Thank you for helping us.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Klausner, and I am grateful to be co-president with my friend and colleague, Alan Levitt. As co-presidents, we cannot lead without the help of so many of you. Thank you to everyone here who donated their time and their money to enable the reconstruction of a warm, welcoming, and meaningful Jewish home for our congregants, community, and future generations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Specifically, I would like to call out a few of you who really went beyond the call of duty to help make this building a reality. First, a tremendous thank you to Ambassador Ronald Lauder and his wife, Jo Carol Lauder, without whose financial commitment and design input we would not be here today. I would also like to thank those on the Capital Campaign Committee who helped raise the balance of the funds necessary for construction. Committee members include the indefatigable and relentless Neil Fagan, John Golden, Mark Bitterman, Roger Matloff, Howard Chwaski, and Brianne Matloff. Special kudos go to John and Suzanne Golden and Mark and Wendy Bitterman, who invited prospective donors to their home or club for fundraising dinners. Richard Hemley, a valued member of our temple board, deserves a very special thank you today as well. Richard spent endless hours lending his expertise and decisiveness supervising the construction of this project to almost completion, but we're really close. Kudos as well to Anthony Porzini, who very ably helped Richard. I would also like to recognize and thank Marilyn Zaretsky. As chair of the Interior Design Committee, Marilyn spent an inordinate amount of time identifying and coordinating the furniture and furnishings in this building. Speaking of construction, I would like to thank our architect, Bill Chaliff, who took over the project from the original architect visionary for the project, Lee Pomeroy. Our builder, Buddy Wines, president of RLW Construction, who not only meticulously built this structure from beginning to end, but also made a significant capital campaign contribution. And RLW's tireless project manager, Tom Ackerson. A special shout out goes to Dan Hunter, the landscape architect, whose magical design gently welcomes us before we even enter the building. Although I would also like to thank everyone else here individually who made a contribution to this project. I know food and drink are just over the horizon thanks to the coordination of Adrian Fearman. Before I conclude, however, I would like to, last but by no means least, give a tremendous thank you to our Rabbi Dan Geffen, our amazing executive director and school principal, Shelley Lichtenstein, without whose tireless devotion and hard work, this reconsecration and celebration would never have been possible. It truly takes a village. Now, enough of me. Let's get back to Roger and finish up.
Thank you, Alan and Ron, for those inspiring words. Yeah, before we conclude the program, I really want to share a personal experience. 2 weeks ago, we had a baby naming at the shul. It was kind of historic, as it was the first baby naming in our newly renovated sanctuary, and quite frankly, a very special time for my family. You know, unfortunately, Millie, that's our new granddaughter, is simply too young to remember the day. However, as she grows up and she visits the shul for services and holidays, she will know that her spiritual journey started here. And my hope is, one day, she will take her child to Adass to have her baby named and walk by a wall of plaques and point to our family name, knowing that we helped ensure its future by contributing to this renovation. You'll notice, as of today, there are no plaques on the wall. That was intentional. We wanted to give everyone the opportunity to have the honor of having their name inscribed on this project. If you have not yet donated, if you wish to basically increase your donation, this is the time to do it. You know, we all know you can't take it with you, but you can send it on ahead. Okay? Before we change the venue and celebrate with the L'chaim, let's enjoy our people's never-ending message of hope, Hatikva, which is being performed by Sienna, Link Morse, and Cantor Kevin. You know, feel free to sing along because we really have a lot to celebrate.
It's also customary, if you are feeling comfortable, to rise. And Cantor, you got the page number there?
Kol od baleva penima nefesh Yehudi homia ulfate mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia. חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים.
I don't know who gets to end this thing, but you guys ready to party? There is no ending. It's the beginning of things. So you know what we're going to do while we're beginning? And we're moving downstairs, which may be the first time for some of you. We're going to sing Siman Tov as we dance. All right? We're going to dance our way downstairs. Siman Tovu, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tovu, Siman Tov, Siman Tovu, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tovu, Siman Tov, Siman Tovu, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tovu, Siman Tov, Yehei Lanu, Yehei Lanu, Yehei Lanu, Ulechol Yisrael, Yehei Lanu, Elanu, Ulechol Yisrael, Yelanu, Yelanu, Ulechol Yisrael, Yelanu, Yelanu, Ulechol Yisrael. Mazel Tov, everybody. So again, if you don't know how to get downstairs, follow the people in front of you. If you need other access, there is another way around this way, elevator as well. I'll stop talking.